Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today for our series on working AI. We're talking about the personal graph, and I'm joined by Pradeep, one of the engineers who focuses on knowledge graphs here at Glean. Pradeep, you want to say hi and give a quick intro?
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Pradeep and I've been working at Glean's knowledge graph for over a year. Prior to that, I spent a decade working on knowledge graph at Google. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
We're really happy to have you. So today we're talking about personal graphs, which is focused on personalizing the experience in the enterprise. And how are you thinking about personalization beyond the confines of just chat memory?
So as people started using assistant more and more, most of the assistant in the market, they started collecting all the interactions, and the primary form of personalization on most of the assistants is based on your interactions. So they use your interactions to figure out the tone in which you consume the information, like kind of queries that you do to understand your interest and so on. So most of those personalization today are primarily driven from your interactions. Now, if we zoom out and look at the overall enterprise context, then like you might be spending maybe 10% of your time querying with assistant, but most of your time is spent discussing with your colleagues on Slack, creating documents, attending meetings, creating presentations, writing code, and so forth. So from that perspective, the personalization in assistant is pretty limited to your sessions, but we are leaving out a lot on the table. And at Glean, we are mostly thinking around how to look at that all your context or documents that you have produced to personalize your responses. So that's how we primarily think, like utilize all your work artifacts and use them to make assistant even more powerful and more personal.
So how are you working to kind of expand that window of personalization?
Yeah, so at Glean, we have a base search engine in the enterprise. So to build search engine, we already kind of built a very rich knowledge graph that comprises of all the documents that you have produced, and to some extent, all your relationship with your colleagues and whatnot. So using all of those relationships, we are already able to personalize things like, okay, if you are in sales and then you write up, let's say, POC, then we know that means point of contact. And at the same time, if some engineer is creating a query and asking a query like, okay, POC about X, we know that means it's talking about proof of concept. So such kind of personalizations are already there. We also utilize things like your affinity. So, for example, if someone works in AI quality and they are searching for a document, it is highly likely that you want to see the documents that come from the same team. So all those signals are utilized for search, and now we are thinking about expanding that for the knowledge graph.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about some of the signals that we're taking from our enterprise knowledge graph and bringing those over into our personal graph and kind of taking a look at it from the perspective of the individual.
Yeah, so like if you really think about personal knowledge graph, then it's actually like you take enterprise knowledge graph where one person is just a node. So now you zoom into that person and start saying, okay, what did I do? So once you put chronology into like, okay, at what time, what you issued a query, what documents were written at what time. And once you start looking through the sequence or chronology, you can kind of get a sense of what I'm doing at a high level. So this is like one primary signal that we are trying to utilize. Like look at your chronology and try to figure out how you are trying to perform your job.
Could you give me an example of that from something you're doing in engineering or a product-related example to kind of bring this to life a little bit more?
Yeah, so let's say that like typically for a day, like my day, I get tons of bug report from users. So the first thing that I would do is, okay, like what is this bug? I read about that. Maybe I need more context. So I would be doing some Glean searches together, what that issue is. Then it would be another search to figure out, oh, this might be the recent PR that somebody merged in. So all these micro tasks that I'm doing are generally to solve the customer bug report. So like essentially, if you look through my chronology, then it would be like a sessions of search, a couple of searches, and then trying to do a thing. And if you stitch all of them together, then you can kind of see, oh, that the micro task that I'm kind of trying to do is help customers solve issue X. So that's one primary unit of personal activity, which we call a task. And then that's the smallest unit of semantic work. And similarly, like if you think about some other person like a product manager, then they might be creating a PRD, they might do some customer research. So it would be like created a document about X, researched customer X, and then eventually like that entire thing is more like all the activities around that high level task are grouped together, and we call it like, okay, research a customer. So that becomes kind of a high level task. And if you think even broader, then you accomplish all of this task eventually to deliver some higher level goal. So you might be writing a PRD for like let's say agent framework that Glean plan to launch. And in order to do that, researching customers and creating first draft was one thing. Maybe next day you start refining the same draft. And if we kind of look through all the tasks that you performed over let's say a month or a week, then we can start stitching them together and then see, okay, like this person is involved in doing launching X, and these are the tasks that they have done.
Very cool. If I think about it, it seems, pretty easy on first glance to look at a series of activities and say, what's the inferred task or subtask? But I'm sure it's much harder underneath the hood to actually do this. Can you explain a little bit more about why building a personal graph in the enterprise is so hard?
Yeah, so I think like from a surface, it looks very simple, but in reality, one of the challenge is like multitasking. So people are often doing a lot of multitasking. So kind of deriving all this micro task and then aggregating them to subtask is non-trivial. So that's number one. The other challenge is like not everything is like even today, not everything is being observed by observed by Glean, or like in some cases, some of those things don't even have the digital artifacts. Let's say that you and I meet in a hallway and we have some conversations and we made a decision. That is not kind of captured anywhere. So some of that context is kind of not there. So working with sparse context to join them and then coming up with a higher, like getting an idea of high level task. So that's like the sparsity of activity creates another challenge.
Very interesting. And I assume security is a big challenge here too because of the enterprise. So like how can your graph learn in a way that is secure to the individual as well as to the company?
Yeah, so everything that we do at Glean, right, like that at first our enterprise deployments are completely secure. They are they're already deployed on customer cloud. At the same time, all the activity data that we see is like it's all privacy governed, and from like everything, like all these tasks, subtasks are only available to you as the user. It's not that like I can see your subtask and so on. But at the same time, when you kind of look through your subtask and you create your weekly snippets and share with your colleagues, that's when some of these things come into fruition. Yeah. Then then you make some of this public, and anything that you have not made public is going to be used only for you.
So I think that's really interesting, the fact that you can kind of look at kind of individuals in terms of what they've shared more broadly and get a sense of the work that they're doing. And I think that brings me to what I'm naturally seeing as the next evolution of this personal graph, which is not just understanding what each person is doing, but then being able to understand what teams or loose groups of people are doing together. And really that I look at that as process knowledge. How are you seeing kind of this next evolution of the personal graph? And how's that coming into play in terms of new areas of investment for Glean, like Glean agents?
Yeah, this is a great question, and you are spot on, right? Like once you start looking through personal activities and a single individual's chronology, you can see that how they operate. Who are the people with them they interact, because they might be replying to a Slack thread or writing a reply to a Google document comment and so on. And once you start analyzing those interactions, the loose notion of working group form. So we can kind of infer like what are this working group, and then and the content there is generally shared with each other. So once you aggregate them, then you can see like as a group how the project is kind of like how they do the work, and we can start inferring like how organization processes work to some extent, and then another aspect of that is like now if you aggregate it across groups, that's when organizational knowledge emerges. So these are the two things which we are bullish on. Like first trying to gather all the working group artifacts and then trying to model, like aggregate them across organizations. So that's where we see the future, and that is going to be our primary area of research and investment over the next year.
So when I think about kind of the personal graph, what I'm next kind of drawn to is this process information that we're capturing on how these activities get done. Can you talk to me a little bit more around how this process knowledge is being used?
So one of the utility of this whole active personal graph would be later on you would be able to, like, Glean Assistant can kind of anticipate you, like, okay, you got this message, then if it knows that this is how you tackle a given bug report, then in theory now it can proactively suggest that, okay. And like in future when we start building agents, some of these agents can learn from your own pattern and can do some of this task on your behalf. So it can become a true companion to you just by observing what you have done in the past. So that's that is one big impact that we think at the individual level, and at the organizational level. I think we can kind of also derive some of the insights about like what are the informational flow bottlenecks, and then see like what kind of what is slowing down executions and so on. So those are the two big areas where some of the personal knowledge graph can help.
That's awesome. And I think you have a couple of demos actually to show of how the personal graph comes into play in the user experience today. Could you walk me through them?
Sure. So I think one of my favorite agent that I've been using, which is built on personal knowledge graph, is my to-do manager. So this agent, like typically my workflow is a bit async. A lot of time people like will ping me, oh, Pradeep, can you do X, can you create this report and send it to me? And in the flow of work, my next question would be, when do you need it? And that person will say, okay, Monday. I'm like, okay, we'll do it. And then over the time, you have like 20 such requests piling up in your Slack thread. Either you do like in the past, I used to manage a running to-do list and used to manage everything manually, but that thing was always a big pain. With the Glean personal graph, now I have got an agent which kind of looks through all my activities and tells me that, oh, this is what you promised in the order of priority and urgency. And that means I know that, okay, like at least I need to get back to Julie and give XYZ by today. So that's how I've been using the knowledge graph, like at least personal activity graph. And then the other example that we widely shared was like everyone at Glean, we ended up using personal graph for writing our self-assessment. And it was a big hit. Like pretty much every engineer or everyone in R&D team used it, and most people were happy.
Yeah, it's very cool. I also actually use the same agent to run my own performance self-evaluation. So it's become really helpful, and I can attest to how widely used it is at Glean. Thank you so much for coming, Pradeep. I really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for joining us today for this series on working AI and our personal graph. Take care and see you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.